For those of you who may not know me, my name's Tom Conley, and I'm the president and CEO of the Conley Group. Joining me at the podium is Troy Marshall. And Troy is the area manager of Johnson Controls. And Johnson Controls is a world-class integrator and is our collaborative partner in the solution that I'll be announcing today. I will make some brief remarks, and then Troy and I will take your questions. As I indicated in our press release of November 22nd, there will be a tour of our restricted area following this press conference. No recording devices can be allowed in that restricted area due to security reasons. Today, I am very pleased to announce that the Conley Group has developed a revolutionary new security solution. This new security solution, which is available now, is called remote viewing. Simply put, remote viewing is the ability of a technical specialist in our remote viewing operations center to acquire and maintain total domain awareness and interactivity about and influence over what is occurring at another location. Rather than simply being an observer, remote viewing is an all-inclusive system wherein the senses of a technical specialist in our RVOC are literally replicated via the use of electronics at other or remote locations. Technical specialists interact virtually with both critical and routine systems at buildings, and they do so via highly secure internet connection. Remote viewing has the potential to literally change the way security is done, and its reach is global. Remote viewing was developed to address a challenge that end users of security services and systems have been attempting to achieve for decades. That challenge is how they can achieve a professionally adequate level of security with limited budgetary dollars, and in the absence of risk management, study, and threat analysis. The shortage of budgetary dollars has forced facility owners and managers to resort to using traditional guards and/or some limited electronic measures. Despite their best efforts to make this solution work, the result too often has been frustration, disappointment, and candidly high legal liabilities for building owners and managers. Remote viewing was developed to provide end users of security services with a permanent solution to these problems. The objective of remote viewing is to help customers keep their employees and guests safe, protect their property, as well as their information, and to save them money at the same time, and a lot of it. In fact, remote viewing can save our customers up to 50% on their annual security cost and help them achieve a professionally adequate level of security at the same time, thereby reducing their liability. As was articulated in the November 22nd press release, remote viewing will have a positive impact to Iowa via the creation of 30+ high-paying jobs over the next couple of years. We candidly anticipate that being sooner than a couple of years. We believe that this trend will continue, wherein jobs will continue to be added as remote viewing grows and expands. In addition to the growth, there will be an additional positive economic impact on Iowa in terms of the cost savings to organizations that use remote viewing, as well as other Iowa businesses who we will need to rely on for support and services and products to make this new system function as intended. It is also important to understand what remote viewing is not. To be sure, remote viewing is not a run-of-the-mill video system that observes other locations. Watching video and monitoring systems over distance is nothing new and is candidly, in and of itself, nothing special. Rather than being an observer, remote viewing differs from all other video monitoring systems because it is literally inculcated into the very fabric of a building, buildings, or even a campus. The applications for remote viewing are literally endless. When thinking about a recent example of how remote viewing may have been used to positively affect the outcome of life safety, I cannot help but thinking about the recent convenience store homicides that occurred in Humboldt and Algona. The first homicide that day may have been able to be prevented had remote viewing been in use at that location. However, most certainly, and even if a homicide had been committed at the first location, the homicide at the second location would have likely been avoided through the use of early detection and apprehension by law enforcement. I know that unfortunately the first victim was stabbed and laid there on the floor. So even if the crime did occur and we weren't able to prevent it, we could have gotten emergency medical personnel there quickly, as well as law enforcement there quickly. That's one example. There, of course, are many others. Imagine an active shooter situation in a school or a workplace where an active shooter is in a building and moving about. There's an advantage in us being able to have total domain awareness of that entire environment. What does that mean? That means that we can literally see and hear what one or more shooters are doing at any given time, and we can directly communicate that information to law enforcement in real time. This not only helps protect law enforcement, but helps protect the people that they're trying to protect through quick and effective early intervention. There's also an example of a female that is in a parking ramp. She's going to her car. We're watching her in that public area to make sure she's safe from our RVOC. Somebody approaches that female. We don't know whether it's friend or foe, but if it appears that it's foe, we can virtually interact with that location and that person by getting over a public address system and telling the person to get away from her, turning lights on, turning sirens on, and literally getting law enforcement on the way. We can capture and email a picture of the perpetrator to law enforcement in real time, and it will hit their laptops and their cars in real time. We can also use the video to help secure a prosecution of that perpetrator. So that's the difference between items that are actionable and a recorded historical view of what may have happened. Remote viewing makes the information actionable to prevent and to immediately take action if a criminal or other act occurs. Now, I understand that remote viewing is a new concept, and you likely have questions. So in the interest of time and before we take a tour, I would like to answer any questions as well as Troy that you may have.
No, people already have this image of remote viewing, as in the movie Staring at Ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
Ghosts, okay. This is a completely different type of remote viewing than the parapsychology type of remote viewing, right? I mean, because remote viewing, that's what I thought, and I'm sure a lot of the people out there are going to think that too.
It is. The CIA had a program in the 80s, and actually the Army before, called Operation Grill Flame. And that was where psychics in one location were able to see what was happening in another location. We don't have psychics employed here that we know of, but you know, if you will, the same concept applies. To be in one place and have total domain awareness about what is happening at another location and being able to influence that environment. And that's a big difference between being an observer and being virtually there.
Can you explain it a little bit better? I mean, I've never seen that movie that you were just describing, but does this mean that you'll have cameras all over the place and one of your, someone from your division will be watching all the time? Is that what you're saying?
That's a great example, and that's one phase of it, and that's really where John's Controls comes in. Their job is to provide all the hardware and all the connectivity between our remote viewing operations center and everything we're going to be interacting with at the customer location. Certainly cameras is one. We will monitor all critical systems. So if there's a water pressure that immediately drops, we will know that. If there's a fire or a smoke detector, we will immediately know that. We'll be able to, when people leave a building, we'll be able to actually follow them virtually to a parking lot to make sure they're safe. Not only against crime, but against trips and falls. And we'll be able to, after hours, actually anytime, let people into buildings remotely by them pressing a button, us talking with them over an intercom, seeing them, and authenticating them to enter that premises. So it's much more than just observing. And that's what I meant about being inculcated into the fabric of a building. Does that help?
Yes, it does. And you said it's also lower cost.
It is.
So how does that compare to what a lot of companies actually have in place right now, cost-wise?
A lot of companies either have nothing or traditional guard companies. And traditional guard companies add little value because they're low paid, untrained, and underregulated. In fact, what's scary is by state law, there is zero training required to be a contract security person. In contrast, it takes a cosmetologist 2,200 hours of training to do your nails. I mean, in my view, that's a problem. But let's say that you have the best security person in the world on site. They can only be in one place at one time. So you go back to that water leak that I just talked about. If the security person is at the desk and a water leak breaks out on floor 13, that water leak is going to continue to flow until it drips on that security person on the first floor. Conversely, we're going to be able to watch the first floor from our RVOC, but we're also going to know immediately when that water main breaks. If the security person, conversely, is on a round or on a tour, there's nobody watching the front door. So our system is like having a competent security officer everywhere at once.
Now, is this only for industrial companies? Is it for home use, or are you going to expand the home use? Or
it can literally be for everything, and that's a great question. One of the functions that we see being used a lot is that of construction sites. We can put 1 or 2 cameras on a pole and draw a virtual fence around a construction area. And if anybody penetrates that virtual fence, it will wake up that camera and alert us. Now, think of the impact on averting construction theft, of copper being ripped out of homes, of construction projects being stalled out because of equipment being stolen, not to mention the cost of equipment. And so that's relatively easy for us to do, but look at the impact it has. I mean, and quite frankly, it has production impact capabilities for things that may have nothing to do with security, but rather productivity. We believe that customers are going to be able to, or prospects are going to be able to take the solution, and they're going to know how best about how it works in their environment. But we're certainly going to help them in terms of getting an effective solution. What we're focused on is mitigating risk to an acceptable level to help keep people, their property, and information safe.